My husband said he's staying with his ex-wife for 3 days to help her heal from their divorce. I need to help Jessica heal from our divorce trauma. She's struggling, and I'm the only one who understands what she's going through. 3 days, that's all. Those words came out of my husband's mouth on a Tuesday morning that would become the beginning of the most savage revenge story you've ever heard. But here's what made my blood freeze. The way he said 3 days, like he was testing the waters, like he was seeing how much I'd accept before he asked for more. I'm 59 years old, and I thought I'd seen everything. But what my husband David didn't know was that while he was healing his ex-wife, I was planning something that would heal me and destroy both of them in the most delicious way possible. By the time I finished digging into their lies, I had evidence that would not only end my marriage, it would humiliate them both publicly in front of an entire crowd of witnesses. Pause right here and tell me, would you let your husband spend 3 days alone with his ex-wife? Drop your answer in the comments, because what happened next will either vindicate your trust or confirm your worst fears. Subscribe right now, because what I'm about to tell you will make every woman who's been disrespected by a man stand up and cheer. This story has lies, betrayal, secret affairs, and a revenge so perfect that even I'm still amazed I pulled it off. My name is Catherine Miller, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I had the perfect second marriage. David and I had been together for 8 years, both of us divorced, both of us supposedly wiser about love the second time around. Have you ever had that moment when your entire world shifts on its axis? When someone says something so outrageous that you literally cannot process the words? That was me, standing in our kitchen at 7:23 a.m., holding a coffee mug that said, "World's Best Wife," a gift from David last Christmas, while he told me he was moving in with his ex-wife for 3 days. "Catherine, you have to understand," he said, not even looking up from his phone. "Jessica is really struggling with the aftermath of our divorce. She's been having panic attacks, can't sleep, barely eating. Her therapist thinks it would help if I spent some time with her, you know, to provide closure." I stared at him. David is 62, a successful architect who builds million-dollar homes for other people, but apparently can't build appropriate boundaries with his ex-wife. "You want to stay with Jessica for 3 days to help her heal from the divorce that happened before you even met me?" "Exactly." He smiled like he'd just solved world hunger. "I knew you'd understand. You're so mature about these things." Mature. Let me tell you what mature gets you, ladies. Mature gets you a husband who thinks it's perfectly reasonable to play house with his ex-wife, while his current wife, that's me, stays home like a good little woman and accepts whatever scraps of attention he throws her way. But here's what David didn't know about his mature wife. I spent 30 years as a marketing executive before I retired. I know how to research, I know how to plan, and I know how to execute a strategy that destroys the competition. And honey, Jessica was about to become my competition. "When are you planning this healing retreat?" I asked, my voice steady as steel. "This weekend, Friday through Sunday. Jessica's rented this cabin up in Malibu. Very therapeutic, ocean views, perfect for emotional healing." Ocean views. How romantic. I mean, therapeutic. Definitely therapeutic. That sounds intensive. It really is. We'll probably need to do some deep emotional work. Talk through our relationship. Maybe even explore why our marriage ended. Her therapist thinks it's crucial for her recovery. He paused, and then came the words that made my stomach drop. "Catherine, I have to be honest. This might not be a one-time thing. Jessica's healing could take months, maybe longer. I might need to be there for her regularly. There it was, the real agenda. This wasn't about one therapeutic weekend. This was about my husband preparing me for his gradual exit from our marriage. Comment right now. How would you react to hearing your spouse say they might need to be there for their ex regularly? Because what I did next shocked even me. That sounds like quite a commitment, I said carefully. It is. But Catherine, if I can't help Jessica through this, I don't know what kind of man that makes me. She was such a big part of my life. I can't just abandon her when she needs me most. I nodded thoughtfully like a supportive wife should. Well, if her therapist recommends it, then obviously you have to go. David beamed. I knew you'd get it. This is why I love you, Catherine. You're not like other wives. You don't get jealous or possessive. You understand that sometimes healing requires unconventional approaches. Unconventional. That's one word for it. What I understood was that my husband was either the most naive man on the planet, or he thought I was the most stupid woman on the planet. Either way, he was about to find out exactly how unconventional I could be. The moment David left for work, I did what any intelligent woman would do. I investigated Jessica Martinez, 38 years old, 15 years younger than David, 21 years younger than me. Instagram full of yoga poses, green smoothies, and inspirational quotes about finding yourself after toxic relationships. Divorced from David 2 years ago, after a marriage that lasted exactly 18 months. Her therapist recommending David spend 3 days helping her heal? Please? The only thing Jessica needed healing from was the alimony settlement that ended 6 months ago. But here's where it gets interesting, ladies. Remember, I spent 3 decades in marketing. I know how to dig deep, and what I found made my blood absolutely boil. David and Jessica had been texting. A lot. Not just recently, for months. I found the phone records because, unlike my trusting husband, I actually read the fine print on our family plan. Hundreds of texts, late-night calls. And here's the kicker. They'd been meeting for coffee every Wednesday for the past 2 months. Every Wednesday when David told me he was having lunch with clients. Still feeling that healing vibe, ladies? But wait, it gets worse. Much worse. I hired a private investigator. Yes, you heard that right. I went full FBI on their asses. And what Detective Martinez found made me want to burn everything to the ground. The cabin in Malibu. Jessica didn't rent it. David did. With our joint credit card. The same credit card I used to buy groceries and pay utility bills while my husband was financing romantic getaways with his ex-wife. The therapeutic weekend retreat? It was booked for the same dates as Jessica's birthday, because nothing says healing from divorce trauma like celebrating your birthday with your ex-husband at a romantic ocean view cabin. And the therapist who supposedly recommended this unconventional healing approach, she doesn't exist. I called every therapist Jessica had been tagged with on social media. None of them had ever heard of David, and none of them would recommend ex-spouses spending alone time together as part of any legitimate therapy. So let me paint you the real picture. My husband was having an affair with his ex-wife, lying to my face about it, and using our money to fund their rekindled romance while telling me I was mature for accepting it. Put yourself in my place and tell me in the comments, what would you do? How far would you go to make them pay? I'll tell you what I did. I planned the most beautiful, devastating, perfectly executed revenge that turned their romantic weekend into a nightmare they'll never forget. But first, I needed more information. Detective Martinez also discovered that Jessica's divorce sob story was complete fiction. She wasn't struggling with depression or panic attacks. She was struggling with her OnlyFans account, not making enough money to maintain her lifestyle. now that David's alimony had ended. That's right, ladies. While I was being the mature, understanding wife, Jessica was posting thirst traps online and manipulating my husband into thinking she needed emotional support. The emotional support she really needed was financial support, and David was too stupid to see it. The text messages Martinez recovered told the whole story. Jessica, I can't stop thinking about us. What we had was real. David, I know. I think about it too. Being with Catherine is comfortable, but it's not passionate like we were. Jessica, maybe we made a mistake getting divorced. Maybe we should try again. David, I can't leave Catherine right now. She depends on me. But maybe we can find a way to be together sometimes. Jessica, the cabin weekend could be our test run. See if we still have that connection. David, yes. We'll tell Catherine it's therapy. She'll buy it. She trusts me completely. Ladies, I read that last message while sitting in my car in the parking lot of the grocery store where I'd been buying ingredients for David's favorite meals for 8 years. I cried for exactly 5 minutes. Then I got angry. Then I got even. Here's what they didn't know about Catherine Miller. I don't just get mad, I get strategic. I called my lawyer and had him draw up divorce papers. Not because I was definitely leaving David, but because I wanted them ready as ammunition. Then I called my accountant and had her freeze our joint accounts, temporarily for security purposes, while I reviewed our financial statements. But the real masterpiece was what I planned for their romantic weekend. Remember how I mentioned I used to work in marketing? Well, one of my specialty areas was event planning. Corporate retreats, product launches, publicity campaigns. I knew how to create experiences that people would never forget. And honey, I was about to create an experience that Jessica and David would remember for the rest of their miserable lives. First, I needed backup. I called my sister Linda, who lives in Los Angeles, about an hour from Malibu. Linda is 61, recently retired from a career as a high school principal, and has exactly zero patience for cheating men or the women who enable them. You want me to what? Linda asked when I explained my plan. I want you to help me crash their romantic weekend, but not the way you're thinking. I want to do this with style. I also called my daughter Emma, who's 32 and works in social media marketing. Emma has always been protective of me, especially since her own father, my first husband, cheated on me when she was in high school. Mum, just leave him, Emma said when I told her what was happening. Why put yourself through the drama? Because, sweetheart, some lessons need to be taught publicly, and some people need to learn that there are consequences for treating good people badly. Here's what I planned for their therapeutic weekend. Saturday morning, while David and Jessica were having their romantic breakfast on the cabin deck, a delivery truck would arrive with a very special surprise. I had hired a local catering company to deliver a divorce celebration party package, complete with a banner that read, "Congratulations on your second divorce, David," along with matching t-shirts, party hats, and a cake decorated with a broken heart. But that was just the opening act. At noon, a mariachi band would arrive to serenade them with a custom song I had commissioned called My Husband's Ex-Wife Blues. The lyrics were pointed. Sample verse. He left his loving wife at home to play with someone from his past. But every cheater learns too late that karma's coming really fast. At 2 p.m., a photographer from the local newspaper would arrive to take pictures for a feature story about unusual therapy techniques that I had pitched to the editor. A story about how some divorced couples try unconventional healing methods and whether the community thinks it's appropriate for married people to engage in such practices. And at 4 p.m., the grand finale, I would arrive with Linda, Emma, and a car full of David's belongings, ready to help him transition into his new life with Jessica. You think that sounds like enough? Oh, honey, I was just getting started. Here's where it gets really juicy. Jessica had been messaging David's friends and colleagues, offering exclusive content from her OnlyFans account. While telling my husband she was too fragile to function, she was posting lingerie photos with captions about being newly single and ready to explore. I screenshotted everything, every thirst trap posted during her supposed panic attacks, every message to David's colleagues. Amazing how quickly mental health issues clear up when there's money to be made, right? Friday morning, while David packed his bag for his weekend of healing, I finalized my preparations. You sure you'll be okay here by yourself? He asked, like he was being so considerate. Oh, I'll be fine, I said sweetly. I have some projects to work on. Maybe I'll reorganize your office, go through some old files. David looked slightly uncomfortable. You don't need to do that. My office is organized fine. I know, honey, but I thought it might be therapeutic for me too. You know, while you're helping Jessica heal, maybe I can do some healing of my own by creating a more organized space for us. He kissed me goodbye, actually kissed me, while planning to spend the weekend in bed with his ex-wife. The audacity was almost impressive. 30 minutes after David left, I loaded my car with supplies and drove to Malibu. Have you ever felt the sweet anticipation of perfect revenge? That moment when all your planning is about to pay off and the people who hurt you are about to learn exactly what they've messed with. That's what I felt driving up the Pacific Coast Highway, knowing that David and Jessica were about to have the most educational weekend of their lives. I parked at a hotel about a mile from their cabin and set up my base of operations. Linda arrived around noon with Emma and my nephew Jake, who's a videographer. Because if you're going to destroy someone's life, you might as well document it properly. At exactly 10 a.m. Saturday morning, the catering truck arrived at the cabin. I watched through binoculars from my hotel balcony as the delivery driver knocked on the door. David answered in a bathrobe. Jessica's bathrobe, actually, because it was pink silk and definitely not his style. The confused look on his face when he saw the "Congratulations on your second divorce" banner was absolutely priceless. He tried to refuse the delivery, but I had prepaid everything and included a tip that ensured the driver would insist on completing his job. Within minutes, Jessica appeared at the door in a negligee, and they were both standing there, trying to figure out who had sent them a divorce celebration party package. The mariachi band arrived right on schedule. Now, let me tell you, Bill, 5 mariachi musicians playing My Husband's Ex-Wife Blues at full volume on the deck of a quiet cabin in Malibu is something you can hear for miles. Other cabin renters came out to see what was happening. People started taking videos. David was running around in Jessica's bathrobe trying to get the musicians to stop, while Jessica was frantically putting on clothes and demanding to know who had hired them. The mariachi leader, a lovely man named Carlos, whom I had briefed thoroughly, kept insisting that the performance was a gift from someone who loves you very much and wants to celebrate your new beginning together. By the time the newspaper photographer arrived, there was already a small crowd gathered. The photographer, a young woman named Sarah, who thought she was covering a legitimate story about alternative therapy, started interviewing the onlookers about what they thought of this unconventional healing approach. "It's definitely unconventional," said one elderly woman who was staying in the cabin next door. "I've never seen therapy that included mariachi music and divorce celebration banners." "Personally, I think it's inappropriate," said a man walking his dog. "If you're married to someone else, you shouldn't be staying in romantic cabins with your ex-wife, no matter what you call it." Sarah, the photographer, was getting quotes, taking pictures, and generally treating this like the legitimate news story I had convinced her it was. That's when I made my grand entrance. I walked up to the cabin wearing my best outfit, a beautiful red dress that made me look powerful and confident, carrying a bouquet of flowers and a bottle of champagne. "Surprise!" I called out cheerfully. "I decided to join your therapeutic weekend. I brought celebration supplies." David's face went completely white. Jessica looked like she was going to faint. "Catherine," David stammered, "what are you doing here?" "Well, honey, I got to thinking about what you said, about how healing sometimes requires unconventional approaches, and I realized that maybe I need some healing too. After all, finding out your husband is having an affair with his ex-wife can be quite traumatic." The crowd that had gathered for the mariachi show suddenly got very quiet and very interested. "I thought maybe we could all heal together," I continued, my voice carrying clearly to everyone present. "You know, have an honest conversation about relationships, trust, and what it really means to tomber behind to honor your marriage vows." David tried to interrupt. "Catherine, you don't understand." "Oh, but I do understand," I said, pulling out my phone. "I understand that you've been texting Jessica for months. I understand that you've been meeting her for secret coffee dates. I understand that you paid for this cabin with our joint credit card. And I understand that you think I'm stupid enough to believe that spending a romantic weekend with your ex-wife is therapy." I started reading directly from their text messages, loud enough for everyone to hear, the ones about their real connection, and how being with me was just comfortable, and how they wanted to test run their relationship. Jessica tried to run back into the cabin, but Linda and Emma had positioned themselves to block her path. Not physically, we're not animals, but they were definitely making it clear that hiding wasn't an option. "And Jessica," I said, turning to address her directly, "I understand that your financial situation got difficult when David's alimony payments ended, and you've been looking for creative ways to support yourself." I held up printed screenshots of her OnlyFans content, including the messages she'd sent to David's colleagues. "I have to say, your definition of struggling with depression is very different from mine. Most depressed people don't post lingerie photos with captions about being ready for adventure." The photographer was getting everything. The crowd was murmuring. David was standing there in a pink silk bathrobe, looking like he wanted to disappear into the ocean. But I wasn't finished. "So here's what's going to happen," I announced. "David, I've brought your belongings. Linda has them in the car. Since you've decided that your place is with Jessica, I'm making that official. The divorce papers are in the red suitcase, along with the financial documents showing that I've frozen our joint accounts pending legal proceedings." David's face went from white to green. "Catherine, wait. We can talk about this." "We are talking about this. Right here, right now, in front of all these nice people who came to witness your therapeutic weekend." I turned to address the crowd that had gathered. "Ladies and gentlemen, you've just witnessed a masterclass in why honesty matters in relationships. My husband told me he was coming here to help his ex-wife heal from their divorce. What he was really doing was starting an affair and using our money to fund it." I pulled out the final surprise, a letter of recommendation. "Jessica, I've written you a recommendation letter for your OnlyFans account. It includes glowing testimonials about your acting ability, your creativity in crafting sob stories, and your talent for manipulating older men. I think it will really help with your subscriber numbers." The crowd was eating this up. Several people were openly applauding. Sarah, the photographer, was frantically taking notes, realizing she had stumbled onto a much better story than she'd expected. "David," I said, turning back to my soon-to-be ex-husband, "I want you to know that I don't hate you. I pity you. You had a woman who loved you, supported you, and trusted you completely. And you threw it away for someone who sees you as a wallet with legs. I walked over to Jessica, who was trying to hide behind a deck chair. And Jessica, honey, let me give you some free advice from someone with more life experience. Men who cheat on their wives will cheat on their girlfriends. David didn't leave his first wife for you. You were just the excuse he used to blow up his own life. And now that he's about to lose half his assets in our divorce, you might want to recalculate whether he's really the financial security you're looking for. The look of dawning realization on Jessica's face was almost as satisfying as the look of panic on David's. Now, I said, picking up my purse and checking my lipstick, I'm going to leave you two to enjoy your therapeutic weekend. But first, let me share one more thing. I held up my phone, which had been recording the entire conversation. This video is going live on social media in exactly 1 hour, unless I receive signed agreements from both of you acknowledging the adultery and agreeing to my terms for the divorce settlement. David, you know my terms. We discussed them with lawyers months ago when I first suspected you were cheating. Jessica, your agreement is simpler. You're going to post a public apology on your social media accounts, admitting that you participated in breaking up a marriage, and you're going to stay away from my husband during the divorce proceedings. I turned to address the crowd one final time. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for witnessing this therapeutic session. I think we've all learned something valuable about honesty, trust, and consequences today. As I walked away, the mariachi band struck up one final song. This time it was I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor, which I had specifically requested for my exit music. Behind me, I could hear David trying to convince Jessica that we could work things out, and Jessica telling him that this was exactly the kind of drama she didn't need in her life. Their therapeutic weekend was over. My healing was just beginning. The video I posted that night got 40,000 views in the first hour. The local newspaper ran the story with the headline, Unconventional Therapy Session Ends in Divorce Drama. 3 different social media influencers shared it with comments about the revenge we all wish we had the courage to execute. But the real satisfaction came 2 weeks later. Jessica posted her public apology, just as promised. But more than that, she also announced that she was taking a break from dating to focus on genuine self-improvement and therapy. Translation: she realized that David was about to be a broke, divorced man with trust issues, and that wasn't the upgrade she had been hoping for. David signed the divorce agreement exactly as I had proposed months earlier. 50-50 split of assets, no alimony in either direction, and a clause stating that he acknowledged adultery as the cause of the marriage breakdown. But here's the beautiful part. Because he had used our joint funds to finance his affair, and because I had documented everything, my lawyer was able to argue that those expenses should be reimbursed to me from his portion of the settlement. Every dollar he spent on Jessica, the cabin, the romantic dinners, the gifts I found evidence of, came out of his half of our assets. By the time everything was finalized, David had learned a very expensive lesson about the cost of betraying someone who loved him. As for me, I bought a beautiful condo in downtown Los Angeles with my settlement money. I'm taking art classes, learning to salsa dance, and dating a lovely man named Robert, who thinks I'm fascinating and would never dream of lying to me about spending time with his ex-wife. And you know what? If this story resonates with you, if you've been through something similar, or you're going through it now, grab a pen and paper and draw with me. Let those circular motions represent the cycles of betrayal you've experienced. Let the sharp angles acknowledge those painful moments of discovery. Let the flowing curves begin your healing process. And let the intersecting lines help you untangle the web of lies someone wove around your life. You're not just watching a story, you're participating in collective healing for everyone who's been betrayed by someone they trusted. Share your art in the comments using hashtag #HealingThroughStories. I feature the most powerful drawings because your healing matters just as much as mine did. Subscribe if you believe that people who betray trust should face consequences. Hit that notification bell, because next week's story about a woman who discovered her best friend was stealing her identity will shock you even more. And remember, ladies, you are never too old, never too trusting, and never too nice to demand the respect you deserve. Sometimes the most therapeutic thing you can do is show the people who hurt you exactly what they've lost. But here's the lesson that every woman needs to tattoo on her heart. Don't confuse maturity with being a doormat. True love doesn't ask you to share, doesn't test your limits, and sure as hell doesn't require you to smile while your husband plans his exit strategy with his ex-wife. Your turn. Have you been confusing patience with being a pushover? Are you ready to stop accepting less than you deserve? The comments are waiting for your truth.